It's Kevin McCullough, AFA Today on AFR Talk, coming to you from New York City, but a live look in on CPAC. It is still underway in Washington, D.C. It looks like the panel on Obamacare is wrapping up there. Rich Lowry, Evan Sayet, and another couple of folks taking part in that panel. But anyway, glad you're with us. Kevin McCullough, always glad to have you with us. And today, taking your calls on the ability for judges to miss the forest for the tree. I don't know if it requires a new law to be written in the state of Massachusetts for people to understand that taking photographs up women's skirts should not only be illegal, it should be harshly dealt with. Instead, the man that was doing it is getting away scot-free. He's just walking around free man today, probably free to go try to do it again. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's talk with Beth, who's been on hold from Ohio. Beth, you're next. Thanks for being here. Kevin McCullough, nice to meet you.
Hey, nice to meet you. I am so thankful that I was able to get through. And you're really hitting home with me today because I live here in Ohio, and I just have decided that the judicial system is going backwards. We're getting there. We're there because, the first question I would say is, okay, he took this picture, and this is the first I've heard about it. He took this picture. Did she know he was taking that picture? And if so, would she have said yes? And probably not. She would have said no.
And let me clear something up, because several of you keeps talking about like this is just one woman. He did this to several women on the subway. This isn't just a one-time occurrence. This was several women that he did this to, and shock of shocks, they complained.
Well, sure they should, because they would have said no. If they wanted that to be open public scenes, they would either be in a magazine or, but it's not even their fault for that gentleman to get on there and say, oh, well, she did this or maybe she did that. When you're abused, whose fault is it? The one that you caused abuse you or the one that punches and abuses?
The fault of the abuse is always the abuser. It's never anything that might entice him to do it.
Well, this is the problem with that guy. And for them to turn their back and justify and kind of split hairs like what you're saying, that is so backwards thinking. He needs to have accountability for why he thinks it's okay. He can do whatever he wants. And pornography and all that stuff, it gets progressive. It gets progressive. So if he thinks he can get in a little, he's going to push it to a lot, and that is scary for society. And the fact that they're backwards in that thinking, that is awful. So this is a way God's going to use it for good because he's going to wake people up. And if you think about the self-application of it, it's inconceivable.
Oh, completely. And but that's why this made such an interesting story today. And thank you for the call, Beth, is because I don't think there's, again, you go survey 100 women on the street of Boston. They don't even have to know anything about the story. You just interview 100 women on the street of Boston, and you ask them this question. Do you believe your state's Peeping Tom law should be applied to people that take photographs up women's skirts on the subway? You will get 100 of 100 every time. If you got 10% of those people saying no, I'll eat my shoe. This is such common sense, and yet there's this desire. I don't know why does the judge want to allow that behavior to continue? It seems to me that there was something else at work there. I don't know what it was. I don't have any insight. I don't know the judge. I don't know anything about the rest of the case other than what I've read this morning. But it seems to me that there's something else getting in the middle of just clear-headed thinking there. And what I love to do is obliterate the confusion, amplify the truth, and then pursue clarity. That's what we aim to do on this broadcast. 888-589-8840. Let me get right back to the phones. We'll talk to a few guys now. Dwight in North Dakota. Hi, Dwight. Welcome.
Oh, hi there. I just have a couple of things on that. First thing I would say is if it was my wife, that photographer would probably found his camera in a very uncomfortable place. But the second thing I would say, and bear with me because I caught the conversation late, and I don't know if I'm repeating anything that someone else might have said. If I am, I apologize.
No worries.
But it seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that what I heard you saying that this judge said is the judge was pointing out, okay, this is what your law doesn't do. You need to fix it.
Well, that's how the judge justified not punishing this guy. He said he didn't break the law.
Right. So we have a judge that's pointing out a bad law and saying, I have to uphold the law. And
we could have a judge just saying, I don't like the way I don't like the law, so I'm going to say that it doesn't meet the standard.
Right. But then we have we criticize other judges for legislating from the bench.
It wouldn't be legislation if he enforced the law as it was written.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I caught you late.
The judge is saying that it's not written clearly enough. I think it's clearly written clearly enough.
Okay.
Because the term is nude or partially nude. And if you have a camera up the skirt of a woman, what is she under that skirt?
Well, no argument there.
Okay, so
yeah.
how do you run away from the most technical definition of what the judge is looking at in the case? This is weird. This is kind of like when O'Reilly was following those judges all across the land that were letting the pedophiles off on really light sentences, saying, well, they couldn't really help it. They were kind of a slave to their passions, whatever. And he would just hammer them, go after them. There's some weird judges that come to some really weird conclusions about things. But enough with the people saying that Kevin's trying to advocate activism here. I'm not. If the law says nude or partially nude, and the camera is under the woman's skirt, I don't think there's a question about that. That's her private space under that skirt. And under that skirt, I doubt she's dressed to prevent people from seeing under that skirt, because the skirt's there to keep people from seeing there to begin with. 888-589-8840. But then again, I've been known to be wrong before. Charles in Florida. Hi, you're next.
How's it going, Kevin?
Good.
Well, first of all, I will say, like you said, I am from Florida, and we have extremely strict sexual assault and laws for this kind of reason. Because people down here understand that morals take a high ground in these kind of cases, because at the end of the day, it's the lack of morals that do cause these kind of criminals to do these kind of crimes.
Right.
And if that happened here in Florida, and I'm glad you pointed out that they did change the law, because they understood it was left too loose. And unfortunately, like you well know, in this day of liberalism being what it is, liberalism is designed for this specific reason, to bounce around wording of laws and rulings to justify whatever means needs to be ended for that moment at that time. And yes, this is a moral issue. And unfortunately, like the man said earlier, some people do have the idea that, if a woman wouldn't have done this to get herself in this situation, well, yeah, I understand that philosophy too, but at the same time, if somebody wouldn't have gone out and drank, they wouldn't have got drunk, but it's not the person's fault for driving down the road who got hit by the drunk driver. Well, if they hadn't been driving late at night going to the store, they wouldn't have got hit by the drunk driver. Well, if the woman hadn't worn a skirt, she wouldn't have got... No, that's no excuse.
Yeah.
They didn't take responsibility.
It drives me nuts. It drives me so nuts, Charles, when I hear guys come up with those and they've tried to get more sophisticated in how they defend things like that. She was, and you want to know what's kind of weird about that? Some of those guys that say those types of things, want to blame the woman, are some of the same ones that go to like the uber fundamentalist churches that think that women should be wearing, things down to their ankles all the time. And I just think to force a woman to live in basically a burqa in Christendom is the equivalent of lazy manhood. You should not be requiring women to go to such lengths and never address the issue of what men think and how they process And actually, we should do a lot better job of telling our daughters and young girls about that as they're growing up, because it's amazing how radically common sense some of these girls think, especially if they love the Lord. They're like, well, I don't want to be a stumbling block to so-and-so, so I'll just make sure I've got everything covered. Even if I'm wearing a pair of shorts or a tank top or something else, I'll just make sure that everything is covered, because they want sexual integrity to be the case. But I don't think you have to go to the lengths where, I mean, and my mom grew up in one of these churches where, all the women wore skirts down to their ankle bones all the time. And if you wore a pair of pants, you were going to hell. And it was just like, it was too much. Have common sense. Be appropriate at all times. And men, look them in the eye. That's what your job is. Your job is to look them in the eye. Let's go to Robert, who's been on hold in Kentucky. Hi, Robert. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're here.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, first-time caller.
Thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, I'm glad I actually did at this time. It's kind of funny how guys can call in and say it's a woman's fault for wearing what she's wearing that makes her feel sexy or any way good about herself. And anybody who calls in and says, well, it is a woman's fault, they actually need to be checked and not have any kids prior before getting checked. Because that's telling your daughter, hey, go on out, wear a skirt. It's okay for guys to take pictures up your skirt. And if a guy came up to us in Kentucky and took a picture up my wife's skirt, I'd probably be the one in jail.
Yeah, that's it's funny how this topic brings out the macho in men. We've had several people say that so far. I'm not trying to advocate violence against anybody. But I also think we've got to think clearly about this. And there's several layers of clear thinking. Raise your daughters to be modest women. Let's get better judges on the benches of our courts. And men, you look them in the eye. See, there's three big life lessons that we've already taken away from it. Carrie in Kansas. Hi, Carrie. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough.
Hi, Kevin. As a woman, I personally find it very offensive to hear any man say that the woman asked for this because of the way she was dressed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and to hear the men that are stepping up and sounding macho saying, I applaud those men, because we need more men like that are willing to defend women.
No. I'm not criticizing their willingness to defend. I just think it doesn't take any courage to get on a radio show and go, well, if that was my wife, he'd be picking up his jawbone from the other side of the parking lot. Okay, I get it. And I'm not asking you to go out there and pick a fight for anybody. But we do need to think clearly about all of the related matters to this topic.
Well, my thing is, even if the guy did act out and was macho, if the judge is going to say that this isn't illegal and a woman defends herself or a man defends the woman and does knock the guy out, break his camera or whatever, my question would be, would the woman then get in trouble because what the guy that was doing with the camera, what he was doing was not illegal?
In Massachusetts, to answer your question, it appears that this judge would have said that her defending herself would probably have equated to assault, because he's saying this is not an illegal activity according to what his understanding of the law is, and I think he's on acid or something. But it's not. They very well might. And it's very interesting because, Carrie, when the left wants to really play games with the moral situations, they also get hypersensitive to the violence factor. So if anybody says anything, hey, you're being very hostile towards me now. Well, I wouldn't be hostile if you weren't, being such a jerk. And it's just not a good way to go around, winning friends and influencing people.
Well, I think if a man's going to reach that level of perversion, it's not going to matter what the woman is dressed like. I believe in modesty. I do, and I'm raising my daughter. Good. But I think how many times has a woman been raped and it had nothing to do with what she was wearing?
Yep. No, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
No, good call, Carrie. And by the way, for those of you that are listening, and this thought came to my mind when Carrie said she's raising her daughter that way, my friend Dana Gresh has penned some really great curriculum called the Secret Keeper, the Girl Secret Keeper, and it's a whole line of Bible studies, and there's several different books in the series and other things that are designed to really implement modesty, but not in a dowdy, boring, no fun kind of way. It's actually there's actually tips in there from everything from shopping to making your own clothes to doing other things that allow you to really feel feminine and fully girl and fully fun, and at the same time take your responsibility to the men around you seriously and not wanting to have integrity in that area of your life. And guys, I'm going to say it again: look them in the eye. What Carrie said is really true. If a guy is really, really focused on that element of his life at all times, so much so that he's acting out on it, especially on the subway, he's not going to care much about what you look like, because it is all about power for him. It's all about his little trip that he's on, as opposed to anything meaningful that he could have in his life with another human being. All right. Well, thanks for all the great calls. Again, we're going to put this up on the Facebook page and the blog today, and we'll, if you want to go back and read more, you can. Thank you so much for being with us each weekday as we try to obliterate the confusion, amplify truth, pursue clarity at all times. And on Mondays, we're also focusing on prayer. And if you have not yet signed up for Pray 2014, please do that. PRAY2014.com. And don't forget to leave your prayer requests there and pray for somebody while you're there on the page. Kevin McCullough, more than thrilled to have you with us each weekday. Brian Fisher and Focal Point continue the clear-headed thinking. The Silver Fox himself taking the microphone on the other side of the break at the top of the hour. I'm Kevin McCullough, and I'll see you next time.